Welcome to Own Damn Guru podcast, where I aim to create an overview of a soul's journey, the human experience, and beyond, for you to get a better understanding of yourself, to easier navigate your own journey, and eventually become your own damn guru. Hey there, I'm so happy that you are here. My name is Sanna. I live in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm a mother to a 6-year-old daughter. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a triple Gemini. I'm a 1-3 manifesting generator. But mainly, I'm a beautiful and authentic soul having a human experience. I'm a student of life, a student that is also becoming a teacher, with the purpose of sharing my innate wisdom and experience to the world. I've been on a journey, obviously, this entire life, but a more intense one for the last 10 years and a more conscious one for the last 5 years. During these years, I have looked to many people on the outside for help. I have desperately wanted someone to prescribe me a quick fix to save me from the state I was in. This process had led me to glorifying many teachers, thinking everyone else knew more or better than me. But no one, and then I mean no one, knows better than you. So, when time came to start sharing, I wanted this core message to be shown very clearly in my communication. My main intention is to help you to become your own damn guru and not listen to anyone else, especially not to self-proclaimed gurus. Small disclaimer though, before we are ready to authentically come face to face with our truth, we need some guidance, some support, some mirrors to actually react upon to start figuring out what our truth actually is. But we should not lose ourselves in that process. Therefore, the aim of becoming your own damn guru is, in my humble opinion, a very good one. My spiritual journey was, as it usually happens, catapulted by a long and traumatic experience followed by a major decline in my personal health, which resulted in me finding myself in a place where I was desperate for change on all levels: physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I will share a more in depth version of my personal journey in another episode. But ever since, I've been on a fierce mission, which started off with me researching most areas within mainstream health. When that didn't help, I furthered my search towards more holistic health. When that didn't do it, I had to go even further and started to explore spirituality, which is obviously a vague and broad term, often filled with a lot of subjective and potentially judgmental notions. For me, it's an umbrella expression that entails a non specific belief that goes beyond that of an atheist, but still not as rigid and unison as a religious one, where the important part is recognizing the soul and its journey. This exploration often goes hand in hand with different modalities and areas to explore, such as breathwork, meditation, yoga, ceremonies, astrology, crystals, sound healing, plant medicine, and so on and so forth. And they can all play a very important part in one's awakening, healing, and ascension. But according to me, you actually don't need any of that in order to be spiritual. A lumberjack can many times be as spiritual as whichever yoga teacher out there. Spirituality to me is the amount of courage you have to acknowledge your own authentic truth beyond what you've been programmed to believe. The amount of willingness You have to continue to diligently and disciplined commit to your healing journey and yourself on a daily basis, even when it gets tough and there's pushback. The amount of openness you have to be able to listen, to make changes, to change your mind, to learn something new, and then to change your mind again, just for the sole purpose of your own evolution. The amount of bravery you have to sit with your feelings and face your fears. The amount of trust you have that all will work out just the way it's supposed to. The amount of faith you have that you're part of something bigger, that we're all one. The amount of observer point space you can be in during a day where you recognize that you are not your feelings and emotions. The amount of peace or even joy you can bring into any day, regardless of your circumstances. The amount of compassion you can have for another. The amount of gratitude you hold in your heart. The amount of connectedness you feel with nature and all living beings. The amount of love that resides in your heart and soul, which makes you hopeful even in the darkest of times. That niggling feeling or even knowing that there's got to be more to life than this Truman Show vibe, this looping rat race, this matrix. Regardless of what spirituality is to you, I'm going to take it upon myself to relay and explore some common themes that are usually talked about in the spiritual spaces. I'm going to try to draw a map to conclude the teachings and the knowledge I have accumulated over the years. Not only theme by theme, but also with a red thread that makes them make more sense together. I want to give you what I would have wanted when I started out my soul searching all those years ago. And as with everything in life, you should take everything through your own truth system. Take whatever resonates at the time and leave the rest. This podcast is just an opportunity and an invitation to potentially get validated, to see things in a new way, to possibly change your mind, or just to react to something, and that way you know what is true for you, which is the most important thing. Also, keep in mind that no one actually knows anything, and especially not the full story or the big picture. But to get our minds on board, we sometimes have to try to put things into words, even though they are in themselves limiting, to overcome the ego that might be standing in the way of us moving forward. Especially if you have a strong and stubborn mind like myself, that won't rest until it finds some peace in some kind of structured framework, even if it's a temporary one. So, here we go. For this first episode, I'm going to try to conclude all my findings into a swift summary and let the rest of the episodes become either a deep dive into specific subjects in this summary or interviewing interesting people about their journey. So, a mix between solo episodes and having guests present. To begin with, we need to establish some basic spiritual knowledge that the continued thesis will rest upon. This will be a mix of actual scientific facts and spiritual theory, if we want to call it that. My intention isn't to be accurate or make total sense. My intention is to make you feel something, make you possibly rethink something, make you take one step closer to make sense of your existence here on Earth. Not to present anything perfectly or accurately. With that said, the entire universe is made up of energy. Energy is everything. Everything is energy. Energy that vibrates in different frequencies from denser, lower energies to lighter, higher frequencies. The universe is also made up of certain sets of rules known as the 12 universal laws. You might have heard These, such as law of attraction, divine oneness, cause and effect, vibration, and so on. The law of vibration governs energies and their frequencies, and continues on stating that if you, like a radio, tune into higher frequencies, such as joy and gratitude, you are more likely to attract experience that match that frequency. And likewise, the other way around, if you tune into lower energies, such as hate or anger. And which radio station you tune into is influenced by your thoughts, emotions, and your state of being. So when you change these into higher vibrational ones, you also raise your own frequency and furthermore the vibration of the things that you attract. There's also other aspects to universal understanding that entails different dimensions, in which most of them time and space doesn't really exist. Everything's actually happening simultaneously, which can be quite hard for human brains to wrap our head around. Earth is said to be a third dimensional planet where the explanation for that and what that means are endless, but I will let these ones suffice. The three dimension can be put into, for example, height, depth, width, past, present, future. The third dimension is a space where we express ourselves and the experience of that self expression. If we move beyond the third dimension into the fourth dimension and beyond, and start to awaken to the awareness of these expressions and experience and realize that we are not our bodies here and now, that we are not our thoughts and feelings, we are the one observing it, that we are a soul having a human experience. Then we start to move into higher dimension as our consciousness and awareness grows. So, how did we end up here to begin with? It's a common belief within spiritual spaces to believe that we are eternal beings and that everything doesn't just end after we die. That this lifetime that we live here and now is just a page of the book of our soul's journey. It's been said that upon entering an incarnation, we write up a contract where we set the intentions for that, what lessons to be learned, what karma to be cleared, and what other experiences to be had. All in resonance of the universal laws previously mentioned. To get the conditions needed for this contract to be fulfilled, a set of circumstances are chosen and attracted. That's why, from a third dimensional viewpoint, many of us can tend to go into victimhood around our potentially horrible childhoods or other traumas we may endure. Even though it's part of a bigger evolutional plan for our souls that we ourselves chose when looked upon from a higher perspective. Many tend to joke around about the fact that when incarnating on Earth, your purpose is to remember who you are, but that journey is kickstarted with a severe case of amnesia, that you won't remember anything to begin with, but eventually, if you choose that path, you will start to remember who you are in your wholeness, glory, and power. So here we are, in the start of our lives, with our set contracts, our supposedly chosen family and circumstances, not remembering anything, eternal souls trapped in an extremely fragile meat suit that totally depends on our caretakers for our survival. We're off to a really great start. As babies and small children, we are still very open and yet unprogrammed by society. That's usually why people love animals and children so much, because they just are themselves. Since we as kids have the ability to, in an unfiltered way, express our needs and seek out the love and closeness we need in order to thrive as human beings. From the moment we start being deprived of that, even partially, we start closing down and putting up walls. It can be as harmless as a child needing to sleep close to their caretakers in order to feel safe. But the current popular parental trend is to teach the child to sleep on their own, in their own bed, in their own room, totally separate from their caretaker. Which can seem innocent in itself, but to a child in need of that closeness, it can start off responses of not feeling safe and going into survival. And in that space, it's very painful to stay open, especially without the ability to regulate your own nervous system, since you as a child depend completely on co regulating your nervous system against someone else's. Even in more direct harmful situations where a child experiences neglect or even abuse, this closing down is expedited even further. In this process, when going from open to close, wounds are created. Our core wounds are often presented in different ways, but usually entail that of abandonment, rejection, betrayal, injustice, and humiliation. Usually we have experienced some of each, but a lot more of one or two of them. These wounds and traumas are then stored in our bodies, in our nervous system, and then in our minds as subconscious patterning. So essentially, we stop being our authentic selves. Because in comes the ego, the persona, the inauthentic self as a shield with its sole purpose to protect and hide these wounds and the hurt inner child from the rest of the world, because when exposed, it's too excruciatingly painful. So the ego creates masks to cover up and distract from the actual reality. It finds out how to survive and even thrive within the set circumstances and programs of its direct environment. That might look different depending on the cultural, geographical, religious setting of the person in question, but the underlying themes of codependency, being high achievers, perfectionists, controllers, etc., are reoccurring regardless. We have along the way lost our sense of self and self love, so we go out into the world on an obsessive hunt for attention, acceptance, and validation. We don't actually live a life, we live a pattern of our childhood. Our subconscious is responsible for 95% of our decision making and behavior. Only 5% of our consciousness is actually conscious. So we roam around like aimless deers in headlights, going from trigger to trigger, blaming the world around us for not feeling good about ourselves, or blaming the cards we were dealt in life. It's likely that all our motives are duty bound, fear based, or focused on lack. In this day and age, there's also a hyper focus on material wealth, which increases the fear based lack focus. You are only worth something if you have accumulated material wealth. But witnessed by people over and over again who have actually accumulated material wealth, it doesn't make them happy. It doesn't make them feel loved. It doesn't make them feel worthy. It's like trying to fill a concrete hole with cotton. On the surface, the space might look filled, but the void in the foundation is gaping. And during these times, when we don't, for whatever reason, adapt to the set circumstances and programs of our society, such as getting a good education, strive for a successful career, creating a family, or whatever our culture deems appropriate, we often feel unworthy because we're taught that these things that we do are what matters, not to just be who we are, which is an alarming reminder of our childhood wounds and how we were rejected when we were just being ourselves because we had to fit into our caretaker's particular mold. So, the ego protects the wound by getting triggered by anything that risks exposing them by going into different responses or attachment styles. Many are familiar with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and avoidant, anxious, disorganized. Furthermore, we tend to let our monkey mind run wild with overthinking. We dissociate from our bodies. We create unsound attachments. We become hyper controlling, even to the point of OCD and or codependence that only puts value in what they do for others. We become addicted to whatever can distract us or even numb the pain. Become addicted to things such as work, alcohol, drugs, food, or the controlling of food, sex, porn, attention, working out, gambling, and so on. So, as you can see, there's a lot that comes into play when it comes to our human existence. But the good news is this: our soul is always whole. Our core, our authentic self, is always intact. Many times we speak of ourselves as broken, which we are not. To use the common analogy of an onion, the core of the onion is your soul. And since you came here, layer upon layer have been placed upon your core. The first type of layers being the wounds, and the second type of layers are the masks of the ego. In order to get to the layers of the wounds, you need to remove the second type of layer, a process commonly referred to as ego deaths. This is obviously not a linear or one-off process. It's a process that goes back and forth between the layers for each block, wound, or issue that needs to be addressed. But once these processes are in motion, you are one step closer to becoming, or actually just being, your authentic self, which, in my belief, is what most people deep down long for the most. To completely be who they are and be seen, valued, and loved for that. So, how do one do that? In order to start your journey of healing, of unbecoming the things that you are not, of becoming your true self, you need willingness. In most cases, even deep willingness. In order to unbecome all the things that you are not, you have to face them. That takes courage and strength. And to keep showing up with courage and strength, willingness is needed. That's what's needed on the darker, tougher days. That diligence and perseverance when the going gets tough. Willingness leads us right up to the next point of what is needed, which is acceptance. Acceptance of what was, of what is, and what will be. Acceptance that the only constant in life is change. To know what you need your willingness to accept for, you need to grow awareness. To become aware of the things that your ego has tried to shield yourself from. Awareness of what triggers you. Awareness and discernment of the world around you. To actually stop and take a look at what is going on. Stop the autopilot for a second and start making conscious decisions that align with who you want to become. You also need to stop making excuses and blaming the world around you and take full responsibility for the fact that you are the creator of your own life and attract all the circumstances in your life. Next up is commitment. You have to make a commitment to yourself that you are going to do this journey no matter how uncomfortable, how vulnerable, or how impatient it might get. So, what is it that actually needs healing? To keep it short for this summary, it's our wounded inner child, our wounded feminine, and our wounded masculine that needs to be healed on a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level, which also includes our nervous system, which holds and communicates pain, trauma, instincts, signals, subconscious behaviors, triggers that can many times hold us back from evolving. It also includes blockages in our energetic body with our seven main chakras and central column. When we heal, these energetic blockages gets removed and the energy is able to flow freely on all levels. Our bodies are always striving for homeostasis. Homeostasis is defined as a self-regulating process by which a living organism can maintain internal stability while adjusting to changing external conditions. In other terms, it is always striving for balance, which in this day and age, where stress, or at least being busy, is glorified, is kind of hard to come by. So, what do we need in order to heal? Except for the mindset intentions that we already covered, that were willingness, acceptance, awareness, responsibility, and commitment, there are a few more tools and theories in the box for us. To begin with, we need to go back to basics. We need proper breathing, we need proper food, we need movement, we need deeper connections, both with ourselves, nature, and others. We need to connect more to our bodies and souls through breath, meditation, and movement, but from an intention of connection instead of performance. We need to limit the low frequency things in our lives and increase the things with higher frequency. We need to put this into a feasible daily practice that is non negotiable. We need to transform our old mindsets and truths into new ones. We need new frameworks in society since these old ones are clearly not working. We need to stop running from the things we have been running from our entire lives. We run because we subconsciously think that whatever is going to catch up with us is even scarier than just continuing running. But our bodies reminds us when we're out of alignment through pain, ailments, anxiety, depression, burnout, autoimmune diseases, and sometimes even death. At first, it nudges. When we don't listen, there comes a bigger push. If we still don't listen, then comes the free falling. There's a common saying that goes, if you don't make time for your wellness, you're going to have to make time for your illness. So, what more do we need to heal? We need to learn how to put up healthy boundaries. We need to prioritize to fill our own cup before we fill others. We need to learn how to forgive and realize that the only one who suffers from you not forgiving is yourself. You don't even need to tell the person you're forgiving. The act of forgiving is between you and you alone. We also need safe spaces for our vulnerability to dare to come forward. We need to be brave to come face to face with the truth, with our actual, authentic truth. We need support from a community of like-minded souls that can relate to the journey that we are on. Hyper-independence and loneliness are two other plagues of our society that need to be cured. We are often surrounded by people, but that doesn't mean that we are less lonely. And with our hyper independence, genuine receiving is harder to come by. When was the last time, outside your immediate family, that you were able to receive with an open heart? Not keeping score of how to return the favor as quickly as possible, not to feel like you owe someone something. Think about that. I want to conclude this somewhat heavy summary of a soul's journey through the human experience with one of the most important things for healing. Or healing, peeling, feeling, as I many times have called it in my not so amused, impatient periods of what can sometimes feel like a never ending journey. Anywho, one of the most important things in our healing journey is reconnecting to passion, to follow what lights you up. Life force energy, creative energy, passion, and actual sexual and sensual energy come from the same place. You can probably feel that within you as you connect to the feeling of being energized and walking on clouds, or the other way around when feeling low. Passion can sometimes be a tricky subject because if it's not straightforward as music to a musician or art to an artist, we can feel a bit lost in what our passion is, which makes the previous statement the best guidance. Follow what lights you up. At first, it might be something you do on the side as a hobby, but eventually it might just be that one thing that you're actually meant to attract your abundance through, aka hold as your day to day business. Which leads us to our final topic of healing for this episode, which is purpose. Many of us often feel like we lack purpose in our lives. We have a job, we have some friends and family, and maybe a hobby or two, but at the end of the day, month, year, decade, we start to feel quite unfulfilled without that particular purpose that we sometimes think will come in as our knight in shining armor that will ride in on a white horse and reveal itself. But what if I told you that your purpose is to just be you? To just be you. To just be you. To just be you. To just be you. Follow what lights you up and share that unique frequency that is you and what you do with the world. With that said, I hope this episode has got you thinking, feeling, questioning a thing or two about life, got you a bit curious about yourself and your journey, got to see something in another perspective or in a new light. But most of all, I hope that I instilled some hope in you, that you are not alone, that you are not crazy, that you are not the odd one out just because everyone else managed to hold up their facade tightly, that you are just an eternal soul having a human experience like the rest of us, but with your unique path, gifts, and passions. Join me on the continued quest of becoming your own damn guru. Until next time.